The imperial preceptor's estate has 2 young ladies. One possesses the phoenix bone, while the other is cursed with a wretched fate. The 5th prince guessed that I was the true phoenix, and came specifically to marry me. But to his surprise, after our marriage, he acted with reckless arrogance, offended the emperor at court, and was banished 1,000 miles away. As he drew his last breath in bitter resentment, Xie Nanting closed his eyes, refusing to look at me.
If only I had married your second sister back then. My entire life was ultimately ruined by you.
Waking up with a start, I found myself back on the day Her Highness summoned us. I took off my fine clothes, wiped away my makeup, and painted dark spots all over my face. And upon seeing me, a sigh escaped Her Highness's face.
I heard that the eldest daughter of the imperial preceptor is well-mannered and exceptionally intelligent. I never expected her to be so unsightly. It seems she cannot possibly be the true phoenix.
After pausing for a moment, she looked toward my second sister beside me.
Second young lady of the Shen family, step forward and let me have a look at you.
My younger sister slowly stood up and took a step forward. From behind the curtain, Xie Nanting's gaze swept indifferently over me and rested on my second sister. I pondered silently. Late last spring, my second sister fell in love with him at first sight. Hearing that the empress planned to choose a primary consort for him at the banquet, my younger sister was as joyful as a magpie, dragging me along to choose clothes and try on jewelry. Eldest sister, tell me, what kind of woman would the 5th prince favor? I lowered my head and replied softly, a moon-white dress, a green jade hairpin, and the less you pay attention to him, the more interested he will become. In our past life, that was exactly how he took a liking to me. It was during the 3rd lunar month in the height of spring, when all the flowers were in full bloom. Her Majesty suggested that everyone copy a painting, and whoever painted the best would receive a reward. I did not want to be chosen, so I picked the quietest corner to sit down. The 5th prince watched us from across the water for a long while, and finally parted the willow branches to walk along the water's edge, rolling up his long sleeves. He ground the ink solely for me. I looked up at him in surprise, and he gave a gentle smile, making even the spring scenery pale in comparison.
Fine ink. Suits the eldest Miss Shen perfectly.
Only later did I learn that the 5th prince was wild by nature and never followed the beaten path. The less I cared to pay attention to him, the more he looked at me with high regard. It was all because in his heart, a phoenix should be high and aloof, indifferent to the vanity of the world. My second sister took my advice, so today, she indeed changed into a moon-white gown. The warm sun shone gently, and her jade ornaments swayed softly under the shy gazes of the young ladies. The habitually cold Xie Nanting suddenly swept aside the jade curtain and strode over to this side. The jade pendant at his waist chimed softly, and a familiar woody fragrance brushed past my nose. The 5th prince passed right by me, his steps suddenly coming to a halt. A flicker of hesitation crossed his handsome eyes. I quietly lowered my face and blocked my countenance with a round fan. The 5th prince paused for a brief moment, then handed the luminous pearl to my second sister.
A bright, precious pearl. Suits the second Miss Shen perfectly.
The music of the zithers and lutes echoed once more. The godlike young man raised his hand and brushed away a stray petal from my sister's shoulder. My little sister blushed with shyness, illuminated by the candlelight. They truly made a perfect couple. I calmly drank the very last cup of wine and curled my lips into a faint smile. In my past life, the 5th prince ignored my dissuasion and held the grandest wedding in the entire capital. The precious pearls of the heavenly mountains and the red coral of the South Sea were considered the most ordinary items among the betrothal gifts. He said,
I will make you the envy of every unwed woman.
Because of my destiny as the phoenix, a true phoenix deserved to be this high and mighty. But by doing so, the entire capital came to know that I was born with the phoenix destiny. Consequently, my little sister is destined to be born of lowly bone. In the past, even when Her Highness questioned him in person, father never let it slip as to who the true phoenix was, all to protect the other girl's reputation. But the 5th prince, in his utter impatience, made my destiny public, completely shattering an old father's hopes. After I was betrothed to the 5th prince, my sister's life became exceptionally difficult. No one in the capital's noble households wanted her, fearing they might be tainted by her supposedly lowly fate. Her former childhood friends all avoided her at every turn. My second sister was lively by nature, as eloquent and sweet-voiced as an oriole, but from then on, she grew more despondent and withered day by day, finally volunteering to shave her head and become a nun, wishing to end her days accompanied only by morning bells and evening drums. Overwhelmed with grief and anxiety, I tried to help her escape, whether we go down to the water towns or up to the northern deserts, just as long as we go somewhere where no one knows us, so we wouldn't be choked to death by this damned fate. But my little sister just slumped over the table, her eyes devoid of light.
Eldest sister, there is no need to trouble yourself for me anymore. With your noble destiny as a phoenix must not be covered in ashes
because of me. Later, my second sister died with deep resentment. At the tender age of only 18, she blamed me for ruining her life. The memory of my sister's lonely figure in my mind slowly faded away. What I see before me now is my second sister's joyful, radiant smile. I silently raised my glass to toast her. Xiangjun, I am returning the Phoenix Pavilion to you. In this lifetime, you will never have to endure those torments again. Within 2 days, Her Highness bestowed the marriage alliance. I endured everything my second sister suffered in her past life. My old friends all left me, and my relatives ignored me. But I didn't care. I still went to the temple to chant Buddhist sutras as usual. With these sutras, I wanted to deliver the soul of my child from my past life. When I was exiled, I found out I was pregnant. Upon hearing this news, the fifth prince fell silent for a long while, and eventually brought me a bowl of abortifacient medicine.
The Emperor already holds me in utter contempt. If he finds out that I am still clinging to romantic affairs at a time like this, he will surely be even more enraged. We cannot keep this child.
But similar words. I had already pleaded with him in the middle of the night, but he turned a deaf ear, gripping my arms tightly and pressing me down into the soft bedding.
My life is already miserable enough. Are you going to push me away too?
The spring breeze brushed against my face, sending the pear blossoms in the courtyard fluttering all over the sky, just like falling snow. My own flesh and blood was buried deep beneath the ice and snow, never destined to see the spring breeze. I prostrated myself before the golden statue of Buddha, unable to stand up for a long time. But when I stepped out of the temple gates, the branches and leaves rustled in the breeze, and the warm sun was shining beautifully. The fifth prince stood in the shade, withered petals falling on his shoulders.
Eldest Miss Shen, I came today to apologize to you. It was all because of my marriage that you were scolded for no reason. I am in the wrong.
I said coldly, "It is a trivial matter. Your Highness need not concern yourself." I continued walking forward. The moment we brushed past each other,
At the spring welcoming feast, are you not deliberately making trouble? You refuse to pay attention to me. On what grounds?
I stopped in my tracks and said indifferently, "Have you forgotten? I was born with a wretched fate. Anyone who comes near me will be tainted with bad luck. Must your Highness truly insist on this?" The fifth prince suddenly snapped out of it and hastily let go of me, looking somewhat flustered. But I had already turned and walked far away. Father had the servants prepare the pastries I craved most. When he came to visit me, his eyes were red.
It is all my fault. I should not have read the stars in private before, much less spread it everywhere, implicating you to such an extent.
I smiled softly. I actually prefer this kind of peaceful life. I was not lying. In my past life, although I held a noble status and wore gold and silver, I was filled with immense self-reproach. Due to the death of my younger sister, I could not sleep night after night. As soon as dawn broke, I had to force a smile and pretend to be a generous and dignified primary consort. As the years went by, I grew more and more withered. The old nanny who watched me grow up could not bear to see it. She stayed in the kitchen by the stove every day, hoping only that I would eat a few more bites. But the fifth prince gripped my withered arm, extremely proud and pleased.
The divine bird circles at the peak of the firmament, its posture elegant and free. Zhiyu, you truly match the destiny of a true phoenix now. I am extremely happy.
I shook my head, casting aside those sorrowful memories of the past, and took a small bite of the lotus paste pastry my father had brought. It was so sweet. My father let out a sigh.
Once the storm blows over, I will send you to your maternal great-grandmother's house. Once you are there, you can change your name, escape the shackles of the astrological prophecy, and live a free and unfettered life.
After pausing for a moment, he whispered,
After all, you are actually...
Just then, a gust of wind blew, causing the wind chimes under the eaves to jangle wildly. I did not hear him clearly, so I looked at him in confusion. "What did you say, father?" But my father did not continue speaking. He walked away with a bitter smile. At the beginning of summer, I arrived at my grandfather's estate in Jiangnan. My grandfather's family had practiced medicine for generations, and their household was upright and simple. I followed my uncle, studying the art of medicine in the pharmacy. When my uncle was too busy, I would sometimes step in to treat minor ailments. No one here spoke of any preordained fate, and my days were spent in great happiness. On that day, a noble guest entered the pharmacy and specifically requested that I treat him. I was slightly taken aback. My medical skills were shallow, and I feared I might fail the customer. The beaded curtain was lifted, and in the bright, brilliant early summer sun, the fifth prince stood there, dressed entirely in plain white mourning clothes. His face was cold, handsome, and alluring.
No matter. Only the eldest Miss Shen can cure this illness of mine.
I froze in daze for a long moment. Xie Nanting, why on earth had he found his way here? Word had it that the fifth prince doted on my younger sister to the extreme. On the night of the lantern festival, he sent people to bring over thousands of colored lanterns carved from red jade, solely to bring a smile to his lady's face. After enduring another month, it would be the auspicious day of his wedding. Now, He should have been in the imperial city making preparations. I gritted my teeth, and I did not say a word, but merely gestured for him to take a seat. Where does your highness feel unwell? The fifth prince stared intently at me, asking in return.
Have you been well in this water town?
These words were ordinary, but coming from him, they seemed somewhat inappropriate. I paid him no mind. I am safe and sound. Please return, your highness. After a moment of thought, Xie Nanting summoned his servants to bring in 2 pots of rare flowers.
The finest crabapples in the capital have bloomed. I knew it.
He stopped abruptly, changing his phrasing.
I heard that you are extremely fond of crabapple flowers, fearing you couldn't find them in Jiangnan. I specially brought these 2 pots to bestow upon you.
I was stunned. Traveling from the capital to Jiangnan was a distance of thousands of miles. Despite his noble status as an imperial prince, he had rushed through the night just to present 2 pots of flowers. And yet, I did not care for midget crabapples at all. The one who was fond of crabapple flowers was my second sister. After she passed away, I was sorting through her belongings. I saw that the few pots of crabapple flowers she treasured were almost completely withered. At that moment, a wave of sorrow overcame me, so I took them to the fifth prince's manor to water them. After I was betrothed to the fifth prince, the 2 of us shared a brief period of happiness. At that time, everyone was certain that I was the true phoenix, and His Majesty had also consented to the match. On the day of the private mid-autumn banquet, he specially bestowed upon me a mutton-fat jade phoenix hairpin. In truth, on what grounds did I deserve to wear a phoenix ornament? This was a treasure that only the mother of the nation dared to touch. But with His Majesty's favor and the Empress's compliance, it was as if they were borrowing my prestige. To elevate the fifth prince, the fifth prince was in high spirits and became increasingly gentle and protective toward me, seeing me tending to the midget crabapples. On a whim, he would also pick up the water ladle and sprinkle some water. But as it turned out, the fifth prince grew too arrogant and reckless, inviting countless resentments. Gradually, he lost the emperor's favoritism, and his prospects grew increasingly bleak. He then began to suspect that my astrological reading was incorrect and that I had hindered him. He treated me with coldness as hard as iron, and even those premium potted plants suffered as well. On the day of my birthday, he had drunk his fill of wine, his sorrow and frustration unresolved. Seeing the crabapple flowers blooming so brightly, seemingly oblivious to their impending doom, he grabbed a pair of iron shears and shredded the blossoms one by one into a complete mess.
How can such filthy weeds be worthy of blooming in my courtyard?
He ordered the crabapple branches to be thrown out, his words carrying a double meaning.
Lowly things that sprouted from the dirt should get back into the dirt.
It was an extreme humiliation. This was the birthday gift my husband bestowed upon me. I slowly closed my eyes. When I came to my senses, I found the fifth prince still standing before me, his cold brow slightly furrowed. This man of pampered luxury, this pampered and arrogant true son of heaven, actually showed a hint of panic at this moment.
This begonia branch. Does the eldest Miss Shen like me?
I raised my wrist to prop open the wooden window. The pharmacy was built right over the water, and outside lay the blue waves and spring scenery of Jiangnan. It happened to be the beginning of summer, and the new lotuses were just revealing their tender buds, accompanying the rippling surface of the lake. They looked clean and charming. I have always preferred water lotuses. As for my second sister, she has loved begonias since childhood. If your fifth highness takes this back to give to her, she will surely be extremely happy. But the fifth prince did not pay attention to the latter half of my words at all, only muttering,
Do you love lotuses? Since which year and which day did you stop liking begonias?
I could not help but frown, feeling a bit of apprehension deep down. Yet my face remained calm and rippleless. Your highness is about to be wed. Making this trip to find me flows truly breaches propriety. I took half a step back, distancing myself from him. Fifth highness, please leave. The fifth prince stared at me intently for a long time. The bright sun was setting, and the faint, red clouds brushed a soft, warm color onto his long robe. He looked as if he harbored a few hints of tenderness. I could not help but feel my skin crawl. No matter what the fifth prince was scheming in this lifetime, I have no desire to have any involvement with him in this lifetime at all. I heard him murmur,
The water country is damp. You must take good care of your health.
My second sister wrote a letter to me. On the paper, she spoke of the troubles of preparation and sighed that it was all thanks to the fifth prince's attentiveness in calling out the head matron of the inner courtyard to take care of all the trivial details for her. Whenever she mentioned the fifth prince, her handwriting overflowed with warmth and sweetness. Eldest sister, I still feel as if I am in a dream. Am I truly going to be wed to him? Is such a celestial gentleman truly to become my husband? At the very end of the letter, my little sister repeatedly begged me to come to the capital for tea. Eldest sister, when I host my wedding banquet, you must absolutely be there. I have already mentioned it to the fifth prince, and he will reserve the seat of honor for you. I want all the people of the capital to know. that you are my eldest sister, and no one shall look down on you. I fell silent for a long while, but still took up my pen to write a letter of refusal. The fifth prince's actions were somewhat absurd, and I had absolutely no desire to cross paths with him again. Another half-month passed, and it was the auspicious day of my second sister's wedding. Hearing that the goddess temple in Jiangnan was extremely efficacious, I made a special trip to the temple. Before the altar of the sacred statue, I lit a longevity lamp. Goddess Guanyin, please protect my little sister Xiangjun. She is a true phoenix, and she is betrothed to the gentleman she admires. May her life be peaceful and comfortable, and entirely free of pain. Suddenly, thunder rumbled amidst the rain outside, and lightning tore through most of the clouds. A gust of wind swept through the corridor, knocking the longevity lamp into the mud, and it actually went out. My heart went numb, and then I heard a familiar call from behind me. Eldest sister. In the midst of the violent storm, my little sister stood in a puddle like a lost soul, drenched from head to toe. I hurriedly pulled her inside. How can you be here? Is today not your auspicious wedding day? My sister stared at me blankly, her eyes swollen from crying. The wedding is off. The fifth prince said he wants to marry you. Father sent a servant to deliver the news to me. Only then did I learn what had happened in the capital. After I fled the capital, the fifth prince began having terrible nightmares night after night. Even the very best physicians could not cure his state of distraction. In his previous life, he had refused to drink the soup of forgetfulness, turning instead to worshipping the Buddha and seeking divination. Who knows what nonsense that heretical Taoist whispered to him. But when he frantically rushed out the door,
Why search for the bronze mirror to reflect anew, only to realize the bright pearl was in my palm all along?
the fifth prince forced the empress to call off the wedding. The empress, who had always spoiled him, surprisingly did not agree this time. Instead, she gave him a harsh scolding. So, the fifth prince went to find my father, begging him to break the engagement first. That day was also overcast and rainy. My little sister huddled behind the gauze curtain, listening in. She heard how her beloved, word by word, dismissed them as completely incompatible. Grief-stricken, she pulled back the curtain and asked, "Was all the affection you showed me in the past nothing but a lie?" The 1,000 red jade lanterns on the Lantern Festival night, the oil paper umbrella tilted toward her during the early spring rains, and how he personally rowed the boat when they were out on the water. That unparalleled devotion that was the envy of the entire capital. How could it have been a lie? But facing her bitter tears, the fifth prince's expression remained utterly cold.
I mistook you for your elder sister. All of those things were always meant for her. I am sorry.
Thunder rumbled through the clouds once more. My younger sister had already fallen fast asleep in my arms. She had fled through the night and had been drenched by the torrential rain. Her naturally delicate frame was now burning with a high fever. Even in her dreams, she lay there restlessly. She gripped my wrist in a death clutch, like a drowning person clinging to a piece of rotting wood. My little sister's journey to Jiangnan was not to denounce me at all, but in the hope of finding someone to lean on. We have been motherless since childhood. Being 2 years older than her, she had been extremely clingy to me since she was small. If she was scolded by her master one day, or if her finger was pricked by an embroidery needle the next, she would always run to me, making a fuss. So this time, when the fifth prince pierced her heart so cruelly, she instinctively ran to find me as well, even though the fifth prince had said that the one in his heart was me. Looking at my sister's pale, panicked, sleeping face, I clenched my fists. If the fifth prince's humiliation of me in my past life was entirely because I was born lowly and stood in the way of his rapid rise, then in this life, even with her supreme destiny to become empress and her utter devotion to him, he still treated my sister like garbage. I originally wanted to return her destiny to her and return her beloved to her as well, so that she could live a peaceful and smooth life this time, instead of dying with hatred amidst the morning bells and evening drums, as she did in her previous life. But I was wrong. The fifth prince is a madman who disregards all moral principles. Even the finest noble lady would be tortured by him until her skin was torn and her flesh gaped. Xie Nanting, you truly deserve to die. Father ruined the wedding plans between my sister and the fifth prince. Yet the fifth prince came to visit me as an old acquaintance, asking if I was betrothed. If not, the handsome young man in white robes stood in the gentle breeze, his smile carrying a hint of bashfulness.
The eldest Miss Shen is exceptionally heroic, and I have long admired her in secret.
Ruining the marriage of the younger sister, only to express admiration for the elder sister instead. These words were truly absurd to the extreme. His Highness the fifth prince is of royal blood, so father did not dare to beat or scold him. He did pull a long face, risking the loss of his official post, and threw the fifth prince out of the manor. But all of this, father kept completely hidden from my younger sister. After that rainy day, my second sister settled down in Jiangnan. My sister settled down in Jiangnan. Her once plump, oval face, and her smile for everyone she met, chirping like an oriole, were now replaced by hollow cheeks from crying, and she remained completely silent all day long, hoping to get her to speak. Our relatives dragged her over to make paper cuts with brass-colored silk paper. My second sister stared blankly for a long time, then picked up the iron shears, quietly cutting the gold foil paper, wanting to make a picture of a divine couple. But her vision blurred for a moment, and the iron shears cut her skin. As the blood dripped and seeped out, she didn't even snap out of her daze. I quickly rushed forward to apply medicine for her, feeling deeply sorrowful. "Do you truly love him that much?" My second sister stared at me blankly, then suddenly burst into laughter.
"Even the weaver girl and the cowherd must suffer trials. Eldest sister, tell me, will he ever turn back to find me?"
Within 2 days, the rainy season arrived. I urged my maternal grandmother, along with my maternal uncle, to hoard a large quantity of rare medicinal herbs. In my past life during this time of the year, the floodwaters receded very quickly, giving rise to malaria. The wilderness was strewn with skeletons, and every household in the alleys lived in fear of death. My uncle's family had practiced medicine for generations and had always been charitable, so they wrote prescriptions for the refugees for free. But the hoarded herbs were extremely scarce and were quickly depleted. In the end, the people in the courtyard fell ill, only able to wait for death. Not necessarily. To be precise, the life-saving herbs were not actually insufficient. Instead, they were snatched away by the Fifth Prince. In my past life, when news of the malaria reached the capital, the emperor was anxious with worry. The Fifth Prince volunteered to lead the relief efforts, convinced that he had married the true phoenix. He believed he was destined for divine protection. Thus, without taking any precautions, he recklessly rushed into the most dangerous areas. Naturally, he contracted the illness. My uncle's family exhausted the disaster area's already scarce supply of herbs, just to pull him back from the brink of death. In the end, the Fifth Prince indeed emerged completely unscathed and returned to the capital to report his success, earning rewards from the emperor. But every member of my uncle's household, young and old, caught the illness from him. With no medicine left to treat them, the entire family perished. Not a single soul survived. In truth, the Fifth Prince still had enough herbs on him to save dozens of lives. Yet, fearing he might fall ill a second time, on his journey back to the capital, he hoarded the medicine bags with a death grip, refusing to save the physicians who had saved his miserable life. Upon hearing the news of my grandmother's family's demise, I was consumed by grief. The Fifth Prince held me in his arms and said in a cold tone,
"A general's success is built on 10,000 rotting bones. To be of some use to me means they died a worthy death."
As I lowered my head to wipe my tears, he looked at me with slight disdain.
"Are you not happy for me? None of the other princes dared to go to the disaster area, yet I alone did. Besides, I returned to the capital in one piece. Now, the emperor favors me above all others. Zhiyu, it was your phoenix destiny that protected me."
Just as the floods receded, the malaria indeed broke out outside the city. This time, my grandmother and uncle made thorough preparations. With my guidance, my maternal uncle's family quickly found the most effective remedy for malaria. The entire household, regardless of age or gender, masters and servants alike, were all busy working in the medical clinic. Some gathered herbs, some crushed them, and some weighed them. Packets of herbal medicine were passed out of the room like a flowing stream, distributed into the hands of the refugees. Even though the malaria was still spreading, the momentum of the transmission had clearly weakened. Word drifted in from outside the town that even though some severely ill refugees were still passing away, the number of families completely wiped out had decreased significantly compared to the previous outbreak. I let out a huge sigh of relief. Yet, rumors soon began to circulate. The emperor, deeply concerned about the epidemic in the water country, had specially ordered the Fifth Prince to conduct a secret investigation. The Fifth Prince was coming to Taikang again. My younger sister leaned against me. Upon hearing this troublesome news, she seemed somewhat dazed. During this period, she had been working tirelessly alongside us in the clinic, putting her worries aside for the moment. Her disposition seemed to brighten up a bit. But now, my little sister stared blankly at the wind chimes before her eyes, her voice drifting.
"He once made a bronze bell out of broken colored glass and gave it to me, saying that with every sway and swing, it was filled with affection. If I ever missed him, I should listen to its crisp sound. Disasters in the water country are not a rare occurrence. Usually, imperial commissioners are sent to handle them. The Fifth Prince is a royal son, so why would they send him?"
My second sister raised her face to look at me, her eyes watery.
"Eldest sister, tell me, could he have come solely for me?"
I felt truly heartbroken. Xiangjun. Yet my little sister had already grown joyful.
"If he has come to beg for my forgiveness, I absolutely cannot let him off too easily. He broke my heart, so I must put on airs and make his heart ache a little too."
But then she suddenly stopped, a hint of bashfulness appearing on her clean face.
"But elder sister, I cannot bear to see him in pain. Am I not far too useless?
Upon arriving in Taikang, the fifth prince did not stay at the imperial villa, but specifically requested to lodge at our grandfather's manor. During his leisure time, he inquired of grandfather.
I heard that the daughter of the Grand Preceptor is your biological granddaughter. Where is she at the moment?
Grandfather only knew that the fifth prince had been betrothed to my second sister, yet the engagement was later broken. He did not understand the complications between him and me at all, nor could he guess his calculations, so he could only answer truthfully.
She is currently staying at my estate.
The fifth prince curled his lips into a faint smile, looking to be in extremely high spirits.
I heard. She loves lotus leaves the most. Lately, I've been interested in painting lotuses. Could I perhaps ask her for some guidance?
Grandfather summoned my little sister to the guest courtyard. Hearing that the fifth prince wanted to see her, my second sister's entire soul came back to life, looking exceptionally radiant, like a crabapple blossom that had drunk its fill of water. She specifically sought out the white jade bestowed upon her by the fifth prince, and hung it at her waist. This was the very first rare treasure he had gifted her. In the side room, the fifth prince was gazing at the clusters of green lotus leaves in the pond, as summer had just come to an end. Most of the green lotuses had withered, leaving only the dry stalks holding on, which possessed a unique, elegant charm. Hearing the sound of footsteps behind him, the fifth prince smiled faintly.
You said you only love lotus leaves. After I returned to the capital, I carved a green lotus lantern to bestow upon you, hanging under the eaves, and have it lit for you right away. How does that sound?
With that in mind, he picked up the wooden box on the table and turned around. My younger sister was confused, but she said with a smile,
Did you remember it wrong?
My favorite is the crabapple. The red jade you gave me was carved in the shape of a premium crabapple.
When the fifth prince saw it was her, he froze in shock.
Why is it you?
My second sister was also stunned.
Didn't you ask me to meet you here?
The fifth prince did not answer. My sister's mind raced, and she instantly understood the whole situation.
My eldest sister loves lotus leaves the most, so the one you were waiting for was my eldest sister.
The fifth prince did not deny it. The joyful smile on my second sister's face slowly faded away.
What exactly am I to you?
The fifth prince looked at her with a cold smile.
Xiangjun, you don't understand. Your eldest sister and I are destined by heaven.
My sister bit her lower lip.
If it was destined by heaven, why did you choose me in the first place?
The fifth prince looked at the fading sunset in the clouds and said with a sigh,
I found her too late. But fortunately, there is still time to make amends.
His words were so absurd that my second sister wanted to curse him out, but because of his high status, she swallowed her words.
My eldest sister will never like you.
The fifth prince smiled instead. This smile carried a hint of condescension, as if he were tolerating her childishness.
If your eldest sister doesn't like me, then you must find a way to make her like me. You know that I am currently in Jiangnan. I'm supervising the treatment of the plague for your maternal grandfather's entire clan in Jiangnan. Whether it is deemed a service or a crime depends entirely on how I present it. Xiangjun, you are a clever girl. I assume you would never just watch the hundreds of lives in your mother's family wait for death. Is that it?
When I returned home from the clinic, it was already late at night. My second sister was waiting for me in the room. Only then did I learn that the fifth prince was actually using the lives of our mother's family to coerce me. In the candlelight, my little sister's face was pale, yet her eyes held a touch of resolve.
The fifth prince, he is a madman. Eldest sister, you must absolutely not marry him. Marrying such a vile creature, who knows how much suffering you would have to endure in the future.
I was taken aback. Before encountering the fifth prince, my little sister had never given her heart to anyone, which was why she had been so madly in love with Xie Nanting, and suffered for it. I had assumed she would be driven into a painful depression by the fifth prince's wild remarks. I did not expect that she would actually see through that lunatic's true colors. How wonderful. My little sister has grown up. Seeing me remain silent, she mistakenly thought I was panicking. She quickly grabbed my wrist tightly, trying her best to comfort me.
Our maternal grandfather treats illnesses and accumulates virtue, which all the folks in Jiangnan know. I don't believe the emperor would truly believe his sheer nonsense. If he shamelessly tries to harm people, the Bodhisattva Guanyin will surely punish him. If there is really no other way, I will go and present an imperial petition.
I shook my head with a gentle smile. With the fifth prince's authority, if he sincerely intended to stir up trouble, let alone beating the Dengguan drum, I'm afraid that on the day we return to the capital, we will be locked up by the imperial guards. I squeezed my little sister's wrist back and said slowly, this mess still needs to be planned carefully. Like this, you reply to him that I am willing to marry him. My little sister's eyes widened.
Eldest sister, he is so mad.
I smiled and gently patted the back of her hand. It is just a delaying tactic. Xiangjun, do you trust your eldest sister? On the night of the Qixi festival, the fifth prince invited me to admire the moon, while all the doctors were run off their feet trying to eliminate the poison. At such a critical moment, he was the only one who still had the leisure to spend the Qixi festival under a dim silver moon. The fifth prince leaned against the waterside pavilion, looking as pale as frost.
I heard that the coward and the weaver girl once fell into the granary. The coward and the weaver girl survived their trials before they could reunite at the Milky Way. Think about it. Doesn't that sound like you and me?
My face was cold, and I did not say a word. He was not angry either.
After the emperor's birthday feast, I will immediately go and beg the empress. She has always favored you, so she will surely agree.
I looked at the fifth prince. And what about you? I was born of lowly status. Why would your highness take a fancy to me? The fifth prince was taken aback, then slowly smiled.
Who says you are?
The cool breeze brushed against our faces, and the shadows of the trees swayed wildly. The fifth prince suddenly stopped talking, his smile beautiful and alluring.
Zhiyu, if I said, our destinies have been bound since our past lives, would you believe me?
Feigning timidity, I lowered my head, a cold sneer tugging at the corner of my mouth. But he grabbed my wrist, treating it like a precious treasure.
I reckon I must have failed you too much in our past life, which is why I find you so utterly irreplaceable in this one. Shibao, I want to cherish you for the rest of my life.
In our past life, the fifth prince won great merit by eradicating the plague, for which the emperor rewarded him handsomely, praising him that despite his young age, he was exceptionally capable of bearing heavy responsibilities. The fifth prince grew increasingly arrogant, his actions sharp and ruthless. On the day of the emperor's birthday, the gifts presented by his imperial brothers were all common items like green jade vessels and longevity pearls. Only the fifth prince hunted a fierce tiger
to present as a birthday gift to the emperor.
The reigning emperor practiced martial arts, and the fifth prince intentionally flaunted his prowess just to win his favor. Yet, on this very occasion, when he presented the still bleeding dead beast, the emperor, who had always favored him, flew into a towering rage.
On our birthday, we granted a grand amnesty to the realm, yet you chose this very day to slaughter a wild beast. What are your intentions? Could it be that the vastness of the imperial city and the nobility of a prince can no longer contain your audacious ambition?
The fifth prince assumed that this was merely a single matter he had botched. Little did he know, from the moment he made a grand show of wanting to marry me as his primary wife, he had already thoroughly angered the emperor. A phoenix destiny is supremely noble, but attempting to seize the true phoenix is tantamount to usurping the throne. But the fifth prince did not think that way at all. He merely pondered.
Perhaps the empress made a mistake that day, and your second sister is the one with the phoenix destiny.
In the silver light, his face was cold and grim as he stared at me. When he stared at me back then, there was not a trace of warmth in his eyes.
What a pity. Your sister died too quickly. I was ruined by you after all.
But it vanished in a flash. The fifth prince before me has a curved, smiling brow and eyes full of tender affection.
The green lotus in your maternal grandfather's courtyard is exceptionally auspicious. I am willing to ensure he lives a long life. Zhiyu, when we return to the capital, inside your private chambers, I will also plant it full of green lotuses. How does that sound?
On the day the very last green lotus withered and died, the fifth prince finally agreed to get out of my uncle's courtyard to take a look at the miserable state of the refugees. Just like in his previous life, he chose the area with the most virulent, toxic miasma. No matter how the local officials and doctors advised him, he was determined not to implement any quarantine measures.
I am a son of the dragon, blessed by heaven. Surely nothing will go wrong.
As if thinking of something, he actually chuckled.
Besides, in your watery hometown, my true phoenix is still being raised after all.
Imperial Majesty could not fight off malaria. The fifth prince contracted the toxic illness anyway. He did not panic in the slightest. After all, his uncle's family had crowds of divine physicians who could bring even beggars back to life. Moreover, he was of the dragon lineage, and since he had escaped natural disasters in his past life, he would absolutely not encounter any calamity in this life. But his illness grew more severe day by day. Today, I entered the inner room as usual to feel his pulse. The fifth prince lay paralyzed on the couch, his face deathly pale, leaving only his eyes pitch black, incredibly eerie.
Zhiyu, my illness, could it be that I won't fully recover?
He rubbed the wooden beads on his wrist back and forth, staring at me intently.
I keep wondering every day, could it be that I committed too many sins in my past life, which is why heaven is punishing me like this?
I replied calmly, Your fifth highness is a favored treasure of heaven. Why would heaven ever punish you? His brow relaxed and he smiled. Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist.
It doesn't matter if heaven does not forgive me. I only seek your forgiveness. I only beg you to forgive me. In this lifetime, we must never walk down that old path again.
The fifth prince's voice gradually grew weaker. His head drooped, and he actually fainted. I shook off his hand with disgust. You certainly won't have the chance to walk that old path again, because very soon you will. After enduring another month, it was the emperor's grand birthday. Even though the remaining poison in the fifth prince's body had not been cleared, he insisted on breaking camp and returning to the capital. Naturally, I raised no objections, but who would have thought that just as he entered Guzu town, he fell paralyzed once again. The rain in Guzu dripped incessantly, accompanied by a chilly, damp draft. I pushed open the door and entered, only to see the fifth prince's gaunt face.
Zhiyu, you finally come.
His voice was raspy like a broken gong, yet it still carried an air of overbearing confidence.
I knew it. Whether you hate me or resent me, in the end, you cannot bear to watch me die. After all, I am the only man in this world who can withstand your phoenix bone.
Outside the curtain, a sudden clap of thunder tore through most of the clouds. Looking at his smug, self-assured manner, it was truly sickening. True Phoenix? I leaned down, staring into his bloodshot, dying eyes. In our past life, you used the true Phoenix as an excuse. You acted with arrogance and brutality, leaving a mountain of corpses in your wake. A mountain of corpses in your wake. Your retribution. We're here. Yet you blamed me, claiming my cursed fate held you back. Whether I am a true phoenix or a cursed soul, have you still not realized it by now? The fifth prince's pupils suddenly contracted. His voice was raspy as a broken gong.
How can you remember your past life?
I let out a faint, cold smile. I pulled the golden hairpin from my hair and slowly leaned close to him. Not only do I remember my past life, but I also haven't forgotten how you personally destroyed our own flesh and blood, nor how you cast me aside like worthless mud. So in this life, how could I ever allow you to ruin me all over again? My husband. But his limbs were far too weak. He could not muster even a shred of strength to move. The sharp tip of the golden hairpin pierced his chest. My smile grew even more charming. Did you not always desire a true phoenix? To perish by the hand of the true phoenix can be considered a fitting end for you. The fifth prince's eyes slowly glazed over, even up to his very last breath. He still could not believe that I actually dared to kill him. The bowl of medicine you bestowed upon me in our past life, I now return to you. This strike of the hairpin is for my child who never lived to see the spring, for Xiangjun from my past life, and for my maternal relatives from my past life. The fifth prince convulsed for a long moment before completely drawing his last breath. I gripped the golden hairpin tightly, closed my eyes, and smiled faintly. 2 seasons later, Jiangnan. The door to the pharmacy was pushed open. My father, whom I hadn't seen in years, stepped into the spring-filled room and beamed at me. The fifth prince has passed away from malaria in the water towns. The third prince was swiftly installed as the crown prince, and the suspicious circumstances of the fifth prince's sudden death were also immediately covered up by the crown prince's faction.
I have secretly observed the astrology and saw only the Ziwei star slowly rising. And beside the Ziwei star, there is a lone star accompanying it. This is an omen of extreme good fortune and smooth sailing, indicating that the future mother of the nation is ordained by heaven beyond measure.
In the imperial city, no one spoke any more of the past destiny of the phoenix or the lowly fate, and in the water towns of Jiangnan, a secluded medicine hall was built. I filled a cup of bitter tea for father. Amidst the rising steam, father spoke hesitantly.
Although the fifth prince's madness was certainly not worth pitying in death, he did not misjudge one thing when he spoke. Girl, you truly were born with the destiny of a phoenix. If you had returned to the capital with him back then, I suppose by now you would be one of the most dazzling women in the land.
I was busy brewing the medicine and did not even bother to look up. I had long seen through what father was saying. The Qinglong Temple in Jiangnan is highly renowned. I had already gone to the temple with my maternal grandmother to pay our respects. When the old abbot of Qinglong Temple saw me, he was stunned and did not dare to speak lightly, saying that my destiny was like a faint flame on the divine altar, guarding the lamp and accumulating virtue. Immeasurable. I smiled and claimed that my horoscope was lowly, which was why I fled the capital to settle down in Jiangnan. The old monk suddenly realized, and without looking further, he personally lit 3 sticks of incense for me. I understood the mystery in the smoke completely. Father was dazed.
Then why did you insist on personally cutting off that path to the heavens?
I tossed aside the herbs in my hand and pushed open the wooden door behind me. By the fence, my second sister was leading a few beggar children to identify herbs. I don't know what the young children mistook, but the whole group burst into laughter together, like a nightingale protecting a nest of little doves, noisy and lively, filled with joy. A divine bird, a creature of that kind, is born to soar at the very peak of the heavens, and traverse beautiful mountains and rivers. If one merely covets that single imperial throne, and thus locks oneself within the desolate forbidden palace, that is no true phoenix. That is a caged bird. Hearing the silver bell-like laughter from the inner courtyard, I let out a sigh. Dad, I refuse to be a caged bird. I want to ride the wild, unrestrained wind. When the wild wind blows, the divine bird enters the forest. The sky is my domain, and I shall live a life of pure joy.